Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. I am your host, Jessica Dewell of Red Direction. You're listening to program 23, and leaders are discussing what does add value mean to you? In a world where under-promise and over-deliver in its traditional sense no longer works because our BS meters are honed, filtering as many as 10,000 ads and advertisements and messages a day, the way we communicate is more important than ever. Whether you read books like The New Elevator Pitch by Chris Westfall, right? I got them all right here. Whether it's delivering knock your socks off service, whether it's raving fans, which I have a little sticky note that says, that one's still being lent to somebody, or even something as simple and straightforward as giraffes can't dance, we're looking for ways to communicate because we want to learn about persuasive language. We want to understand the elements of customer service. We want to understand what add-ons are actually adding value. And sometimes we just need to know how to get out of our own way because that in itself allows us to see what adds value. We're always assessing this concept of adding value and what it means to us. Once we know what it means to us, we know how to bring it into our position at work, to model it for others, to build in the expectation of value with each action we choose to take. Because in the end, it's a choice. Just last week, I had a gentleman tell me something that he had authorized somebody to do for him, and he wasn't happy with the result. And he immediately shook it off, and he said, it was cheap. When I started to respond, he cut me off because he said, I know I get what I pay for. What he didn't know was what I was going to say back, and I was going to ask him a question like, what did you ask the vendor? What questions did you ask this person before you just turned over the keys to the castle in this entire project to them? Because there was a gap in what he wanted and what the vendor heard that he actually wanted. One of the quickest ways to get more of what we want and deliver the most value to our customers, to our contacts, to every single person in our life, in fact, is to communicate well. In this Leaders Discuss panel, we have two value-driven people from different industries and perspectives of where and when to add value. When we come back, I'll ask them, what does add value mean to you?
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Jason Wiesgerber is a TV host and speaker, as well as the creator of the online audio series, The Enoughness Sessions. He is also the author of Enoughness, a book redefining true fulfillment as one's inherent value and full creative expression in action. The manuscript details his personal transformation and triumph through a drastic change in his state of mind and the course of his life, along with the resulting philosophy of enoughness. And by the way, you guys, I listened to him speak. I have looked at his book. I skimmed parts of it, but I also read most of it, and it is worth taking a look further. Lori Anding is all about communication. It's her passion, which began as an exchange student when she went to Brazil way back in 1982, which means I know she's 25 years old. And she understands the power of social marketing and how it brings people together, which, by the way, language, communication, bringing people together, this happens to be Lori's superpower. And through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Initiative, she was exposed to the world of social media communication and shines the light on small businesses today. All right. How are you guys today?
Very good.
Doing good. Thanks for the introduction. Very nice.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And anybody who wants to know what we were talking about in the green room, we were talking about live frogs. So that is a total offline conversation. You can just ping me. I'll tell you the whole story another time. No, there are no live frogs in my office, thankfully. And I tell you what, let's just jump right in. I want to know from you guys, what does add value mean to you?
So I help small businesses get more brand awareness through social media. When you said add value, that's immediately what I thought is, how do we, as the people who work for these businesses, help these businesses add value and they need to be unique and they need to be different from other businesses for them to pick. Because I work for one manufacturing company who can barely tell the difference between his brand and another brand. I'm always sending pictures. Is this yours? No, it's the competitors. So how do we add value? How do we stand up and be different than the competitors? And that is extremely important in this world of having so many choices. Oh my gosh, you go to the grocery store, there's so many choices of the same I want little O's, and there's 3 brands that make the same thing. So how do we stand out? Well, we need to be listening to what our customers want. What do our customers want? What do our customers need? What would make them want to work with us? And that's how you need to approach it from their point of view, not your point of view, in my opinion.
How about you, Jason?
From the perspective of enoughness in the book that I have written and the perspective that I cultivate on a daily basis in my own life and through my social media, the concept of enoughness is really an equilibrium. You know, it's not that big of a stretch to understand what enoughness means. We all understand to a certain degree what it feels like when we are in our equilibrium. We feel very present, very capable, engaged, interested, all of those wonderful things. But one of the things that I describe also about enoughness is realizing your inherent value. Their inherent value is something that exists within each person, independent of circumstances or situations or history or successes or failures. That inherent value is actually always there. It's not better than anything else or worse than anything else. It's yours and yours alone, but it is unchanging, unwavering, constantly stable, and it is yours and yours alone. It's what makes you personally valuable. Now, there's an earned value as well. That's another subject. But I think that knowing your inherent value, really knowing it. I mean, I've worked on this for the last 15 years. I've worked on the book for the last 3 years. And I still sit on a daily basis in meditation and remember this one simple basic fact. I have this inherent value. And it always gives me a little buzz. Right when I remember that, it always gives me a little bit of a charge. From there, I can really go out and do whatever I'm doing with a little bit more confidence. That I do have something of value to offer, even if I can't pin that down. Starting from knowing that I have an inherent value, to me, leads me personally to the point in my own imagination, in my own verbiage and communication, right, Lori, about what it is that I particularly uniquely have to offer that's going to add value to whoever it is I'm dealing with. Good example. Whole Foods is one of my favorite companies and one of my favorite stores. I've worked for them a couple of times over the years. There's this whole thing around Whole Foods about its competition is really getting intense right now. Trader Joe's, even the supermarkets, Costco's and Sam's, they're all carrying organic, all natural foods and that kind of thing. They're all sort of like been taking the lead from that value that Whole Foods really started, offering its customers that value, always having organic foods and being a trustworthy brand. So there's all this competition now, and Whole Foods is starting to slip in the marketplace in terms of its market value. And so there's been all this buzz going on about what should they do? How should they change? How should they adapt? And my thought is, don't change at all. Remember your inherent value, how you started, who you started as, what is your truest identity? And that is the fact that you offer a unique shopping experience that no one still can even come close to. Natural Grocers, Trader Joe's, all Sprouts out here in Denver, they don't offer anything remotely close to Whole Foods. And so my argument would be, in order to maintain your value offering as Whole Foods, I would just go continue to remember exactly who you are and advertise that. Guys, we are who we are when we started, and we still are, and there's still nobody like us. We offer organic, all natural foods, but when you come into our stores, the stores are brighter, the people are smarter, they're more customer service oriented. There's a value-driven company. There's a pervasive atmosphere customers feel, and I still feel when they go shopping there. Stick to that, and I think that that's ultimately going to solidify their bottom line.
Well, I will agree with Jason on Whole Foods. Don't change, because that's your core value, right? You just
your
need
core identity.
Yes. So you need to just keep shining that light on who they are more so than the other brands. And I like the idea when you said knowledgeable people, because that's the one place that just kills me when you go into a business and you ask them questions. You go directly up to somebody and you say, hey, I need this, this, and this. I have a question about this. And they just sit there and go, I work here, but I know nothing.
Having been an insider at Whole Foods, they don't necessarily train that. People that come into work for Whole Foods are just those kinds of people.
They already
Whole Foods
values.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Just like me, when I went to work for them, I already knew a lot about their products and their stores and loved to just absorb it and feed it back.
But don't you think that's because they hired you due to who you are, what you knew? I mean, they interviewed you, correct?
People have asked me that before, and I would say sort of, except for then they would also hire people that were drastically different than me, that came from all walks of life and all ages. They're hiring kids that are 17 now, they're in high school, and they're not necessarily knowledgeable, but they kind of catch on and they tune in. They realize, oh, I kind of need to step it up.
We have to start with the individual people before we can really talk about businesses, because a business is an entity where a whole bunch of people come together. A lot of times, what I find, even in small businesses up to 250 people, there's still the values of the company are actually the creators' values. There are some pros and some cons to that. The biggest con is when somebody else comes in and they only ascribe to the values a certain percentage, or they ascribe to different values that mean something similar. It's an all or nothing game at that point. And this is where I think Whole Foods really does differentiate, in the sense that what they want to give, people understand, and they can stand beside them and own their own values at the same time. Now, I'm curious, do you guys have set values yourself that you look at the world and say, yes, these are the values that I work toward and incorporate into every day of my life?
One has to know their own personal value. I really believe that. And the true add-on is going to happen there. That core identity has to maintain. Whole Foods starts to shake its core identity, the whole thing's going to crumble, I think.
I'm trying to make it personal so people can understand what this means in their own life. For example, when we were coming up with values for our family, I asked a lot of people what their values were. And they said, oh, yeah, I have them and they're written on a piece of paper in my notebook. Or, oh, yeah, they're written on my mirror. And I said, well, what are they? And not very many people could articulate them to me.
I come from an eclectic background as an actor, as an artist, but also as somebody who studied motivational speakers and worked very closely with some major motivational speakers that are still in the circuit today, kind of been around the block in so many different kind of industries. On one side, I found that in the motivational speaker world, it was all about high productivity. There was always this push to do more. And I, after a while, and obviously with the concept of my book of enoughness, I don't ever think it's about more or pushing or pumping yourself up. I think it's just knowing what your values and what your value add is, being able to present that clearly. And when it comes time for there's someone to push it, that's asking you to change it, don't.
We know when we walk into a company, do we agree with the values that they have? Do we agree with the culture that they have created? Do we feel like we're adding to their story, that we're adding to their movement, or are we not? Because that's easy to feel. For me, it's easy to feel. What about you guys?
I can say that about one of my clients that I work with is a manufacturing company that's been around since 1966. And when you walk in, you feel the vibe behind the brand, and you know that there's love in everything that they make. Now that I work for them, and my job is to get people to engage on Twitter, to engage on Instagram. And what's happening is we're seeing people saying, hey, you know what? My mom has that tile in her house, and I have it on my fireplace. So I'm like, well, show us a picture. We're showing how deep it goes, and what we're finding out, it's about value. I want what I value in my home, because my home is my castle. I want to feel good in my home. I want to feel good where I go. I want to feel good when I go into Whole Foods. I want to feel good when I buy another brand of whatever it may be. And when you're identifying with that every day, when you walk into a place and you don't feel it. You definitely know that. I do. Mm-hmm. And I say, this does not feel right to me. And then you have that choice. You walk away.
We're talking about adding value. And as soon as we recognize we're not getting the value, or we're not adding to the value, or we're not able to connect with the value, it might be as simple as that. What do we do then?
Another example, I was being interviewed recently, and we were using the example of selling like a favorite ice cream, selling somebody on your favorite ice cream and why it's your favorite ice cream. Here's the whole presentation. Here's the ice cream. Here's why I love it. Here are all the ingredients, and here's all that value. Mm-hmm. And then somebody says, well, how much is it? And you say it's $5. And they say, I've only got $3. And in the group that I was with, 5 other people changed their entire marketing and pricing structure to fit that argument. And I was like, and I probably wasn't the best thing, but I said, well, it's quite possible this product isn't for you. And everyone kind of laughed a little bit. And I said, well, this is a premium product. And I got to tell you what, instead of buying 3, which is what I had recommended, you could buy 1 piece. And it's very filling, and it would give you a chance to really try it and stay within your budget. I was just amazed at how many people suddenly shifted, even though this was really just an exercise, shifted their entire sales and basically their core identity around the cost value.
You said something very key there, Jason. This product may not be for you. I think we lose sense of our values and the identity, not only of ourselves, but definitely in a business where people are coming together when we do become all things to all people. And unless we're saying no, we're not serving the people who want and are ready and are showing up the best that we can. So we're actually diluting the value of the customers that we are looking to attract and actually attracting that want our service for the ones we think we need.
You're dissipating your energy. You're actually dissipating your value. Maybe in the moment you might win. You might win in the moment, but you've actually subtly dissolved your ultimate core value and your ultimate core value offering. When I first started learning about sales and marketing, what they would tell us, how do you get people to stretch from where they are to where you want them to go? And back then it was very intellectual. It was all in my head. And all salespeople start out like this. They rush out into the market and we try to force and push people to do something that they don't want to do. And we call it sales. You know what that is? That's really just ignorance. But when you really get to the point where you know what your value is, you know what your product is, you're clear on communicating it, and you're happy to just introduce it to the market and see who catches on, that's a really solid place to start. When somebody starts talking, well, we can't afford this. What did Whole Foods do? Where they're like, oh, well, let's change our entire pricing structure? No, they were like, come and try it. We know what we are. Come and try it. Trust me. And that was when people did come to try it. That's when new customers did want to stretch. And they were like, I like this. I can find products that I can afford in here, but I like to shop in this store. Knowing what your value is and sticking to it is a hard exercise, but it's really important long-term.
And Lori, I want to go back to your comments about brand here, because when we're thinking about this product may not be for you. And there's this concept of diluting the brand then, this energy dissipation that Jason was talking about. What's your experience in terms of people's actual perceptions when things like this occur?
There's all price points for every product. So if you stick with your brand, and this brand I've spoken about, they're kind of a high-end brand, and you can definitely get a similar product at a lower price. Go for it. We've never, ever changed our pricing because clients have said that the price is too much. There's all walks of life, and there are people who will purchase anything from a low end to a high end, and you have to know who you are and make sure you're selling to that particular group.
We're working with leaders within our own organization, or we're coming in and we're working with the leaders that we were hired to work with, and we notice that groups of people have really good intentions, and they're trying to do the job the best they can with the information that they have. Yet there are gaps, because while they're doing that and they think they're doing the same thing, they're actually not. And when you notice that, how do you recognize that's going on? And the second question is there an approach that you have that can start the dialogue, that can start the conversation to illuminate it gently?
I think that's tough. It depends on your position and your role. If it is your role at all, then I think it's very valid that you present the idea of that gap. If it's not your role, I actually subscribe to the idea that you just kind of need to know what your role is and stick to it until the time is right for your role to change. Even more specifically, I think if I'm getting your question right, at the consulting group, they brought me in to consult with them on their presentation ability. One of the things I do just from my acting background These are a group of consultants, but they're all sort of like from an engineering background. So their presentation skills are not their strength. Each of them had 3 minutes to present to me. I ran into the same thing with all of them. It was too scripted, or it was very dry and convoluted. There was essentially a gap between what they were offering and what they were able to present. I like to use the verbiage blind spot rather than gap. Is something that everybody has, and it's totally fine. It's a good thing. You be responsible for that. That's when you bring in third parties to point out that blind spot, describe it, and help you to see what you wouldn't be able to see on your own. In their case, it was that there was this gap between their genuine personalities and what they thought they needed to, and this happens all the time, and what they thought they needed to do or to say in order to sell their product.
We're talking about a gap within an individual, what they're really passionate about versus what they think they're supposed to share.
At the end of this conversation that I had with them, after we had done some coaching, they all basically said the same thing, which was, it was so nice to have this because I just feel liberated that I can say what I actually want to say. Sometimes it's really just giving somebody the opportunity to speak up and speak out. And in terms of closing that gap, like I said, unless I think you are in a management or a leadership position, it may just be something that is best brought up to your immediate level supervisor kind of thing and say, hey, I'm recognizing this gap or this blind spot. It's not in alignment with what we say we do. That's the first place I would start. And if there isn't action taken there, honestly, I would go straight from there. So you're working with your direct supervisor. I would take it from there to the top dog. I wouldn't even go to next level supervisor. I would go as high up as you possibly could and say, I already presented this. I didn't get any feedback. Would you mind sitting down and talking to me? And I guarantee you that especially those top dogs, once you've actually presented it to your immediate supervisor, they love that stuff.
I agree with you, Jason. They want to know. They want to know.
Yes.
For these things, always. Lori, what's your experience?
Well, I think it's important in the meeting situation that everybody has a say. Leadership can come from the lowest person on the totem pole to the highest person. And if you can speak up in a meeting and not fear that you're judged or that you'll be closed down, I think that's a great opportunity to hear from everybody's perspective. Everybody has an idea of how to add value to something. Leadership needs to be open to listening.
And this goes back to then, here's a culture where inherent value of each person that joined for whatever reason they were hired has something to add when given the opportunity to be heard.
Right, but you have to give them the opportunity to be heard. That's the main thing, and you have to have it be a safe place for them to voice their opinion.
The idea of respecting the chain of command while also knowing when your time is to speak up and then be ready.
And this makes me think of the Aesop's fable, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. If we always have nothing but ideas and we never actually do anything with those ideas, nobody's going to want to listen to us anyway. So we've put ourselves into a place where we're banging our head against the wall going, nobody's listening. I have all these ideas. Well, why not pick one and see it through? Why not pick one and have the conversations? Why not see what other people are feeling around a single idea? You could even put this in your whole family. When all of your family gets together for whatever times of the year your families get together, there's this thing going on, and you know how to persuasively interact with the people in your family. Why not take the time to learn that in your workplace? It's a very valuable skill. It allows us to figure out where we can get information that's reliable, when we're seeing people and what their own individual goals are, and we can figure out how we can fit in with actually feeling good about our contribution, even if there's a lot of stuff that we can't control and we may not get.
Agreed. Sometimes it's nice just to be heard.
We've got our inherent value, which is what we've been talking about today. Now I want to switch a little bit and talk about earned value. So here's what comes to my mind. What are our employees able to do within their own authority to keep a customer happy and keep that customer?
Well, I think that that's what every company is working to strive for, is in that they are, due to their earned value, that's where their customer base comes from. Are they brand ambassadors for your own brand? You know, are the people talking about, gosh, this is my favorite brand. They talk about it on social media. More people talk about it on social media. Wow, that's, everybody's talking positively about this brand. I need to try it. And it's expensive. Well, I'm going to save up my money because I have seen so many people talking about this brand. I don't care that it's going to take a little bit extra out of my paycheck. I'm going to save a little a bit of money here and I'm going to give this a shot because there's a lot of positive feedback going on here. So I think earned value gives you those people who are going to talk about your brand, get people to want to talk about your brand, get people to try your brand, and that just multiplies.
Okay, we're going to take this one step further because yes, and yes, and yes. So here I was helping my sister the other day look for a chiropractor in the city that she lives in. You know what after a couple of searches, you know what I found? There is some website development company that owns the chiropractic market in this city because it only took me 3 websites. And I'm like, the about page is all the same with a different picture. Ooh. The services they provide are the same with the same language on all of these websites. So here is a perfect opportunity. I mean, how many types of chiropractic care are there? There's like 100. And then there's variations on the variations of how people are incorporating this to how they want to address problems, or relieve pain, or create whole wellness for a person. And all of these websites are the same. These chiropractors have no idea what they're missing. What are they doing to open the door to conversation so people understand their inherent value and they can earn the trust enough that somebody walks through the door?
Right, and be authentic in who you are. I mean, every single one of those 3 chiropractor offices that you're talking about, there's something different about every single one of them. And all they had to do was put that on there to show their differentiation. Mm-hmm. And then that's going to drive their tribe to them. Mm-hmm. Huh. Wow, that's shocking.
And that comes back to, I think, that inherent value. If the inherent value is to get people into a business, why not use the every media possible, both the traditional and the online and what's coming next that we don't know about yet, to invite people? And where's the invitation? I think that's the biggest thing for earned value. Unless we invite people, they're not going to know we have anything that we want to share with them.
A lot of companies, individuals that translate into their companies do not start with or consciously tap into recognizing inherent value. And that's just my philosophy, my opinion, the whole context of my book. If an individual doesn't understand at some conscious level and respect in their own personal inherent value, they're not going to be driven to present to you their earned value because they don't feel it. They don't trust themselves. They don't know themselves. They don't have that confidence. So they're not going to take on that role. Or they're going to go the other side. They're going to oversell and over push and talk too much about what they do and essentially drive customers away. Lori said it perfectly. And essentially the earned value in my definition are your successes. So if inherent value is independent of success or failure, it's something to constantly return to, because we all experience success and failure on a daily basis, right? So what's the stability we're going to stand on? What's the foundational aspect that keeps us alive, awake, aware, engaged, and creative, and pushing towards the next success? It's recognizing that inherent value. But then when those earned values come, knowing how to talk about them, knowing how to share them. And again, back to Whole Foods, I think is another perfect example of a company that started out that was conscious enough of their inherent value, both as individuals and as a company, that when that big flood came, they opened up their first store and there was this massive hurricane or whatever flood that flooded out their first store, and they thought they were just done. They were like, we're gonna just sell everything and quit. But all these other customers came and helped them clean up the store and rejuvenate the entire thing. And they're like, we need Whole Foods. We want Whole Foods. And they were like, holy crap, we do have something here. So they started out with a belief, with the inherent value. And then they eventually translated into saying, we have the earned value of here's our market share. Here's what we offer differently. Here's what customers are saying. So I think that earned value are essentially the successes. And yes, they are the things that we ought to share and talk about and let people know. You know, at a certain level, my inherent value is important, but you need to know the reason I'm doing what I do is because I've succeeded in these ways.
So we're taking something that's intangible, and through our actions, we can measure the results of our actions in terms of some sort of a success that we can then use to build not only our own credibility with others, but our own confidence in ourselves. It starts back from the core.
Inherent value and earned value just constantly feed off one another.
I like soft skills, and I like things that we can practice, and I like things that leaders can do not only for themselves, but once they've been doing for themselves, they're now modeling for other people at the teams that they are responsible for. And so let's talk about confidence. I would like to know, in your own words, in your own steps, how you build your own confidence, and then how your actions model it to others so we can learn from you.
As an actor, we used to build characters from the inside out and from the outside in. So from the inside out is a method actor. You tap into you study and analyze what the character and what the story is doing and what the character is feeling. And then you relate to personal experiences and memories that tap into that same feeling in you so that you can have an authentic internal experience and then ultimately externalize it. You can also work from the outside in, which is when I put on a certain costume, if I put on a cowboy outfit with a big 10-gallon hat, it's going to automatically affect the way that I behave. Do a little bit of both. And I think confidence for me is the same way. Like I said, I first and always want to start from inside. I do the things that I need to do on a personal level to feel confident and level and balanced and present on a daily basis, like my meditations and connecting with my family and exercising and taking care of my task lists. But on the outside as well, I have learned over time. I was a very shy and introverted person growing up, but through acting, I learned how to stand up straight and articulate when I spoke and smile as much as I possibly could and make eye contact. And so those are things that I learned how to project confidence. First, yes, and always trying to build and feel an authentic inner experience of confidence. But ain't nothing like the ability to present it and share that. The flip side of enoughness is knowing your inherent value, but then creative self-expression is the ultimate experience of living in the experience of enoughness. For me, full creative expression. And then one last thing I'll say about confidence, I always like to break the words down. So if people are confused about how to feel confident, how to be confident, I say, well, look at the word. It just means confidence is confide. Can somebody confide in you? And most of the time, most people will say, yeah, especially those people that are unstable in their confidence. And I don't know. And you say, but can somebody rely on you? Can they confide in you when they really need to come to you? And those people are all the time, they're, yes, come to me. I said, well, that's confidence. Don't get confused about what confidence might mean to someone else. The idea of being able to for someone to confide in me gives me confidence.
All right, Lori.
Let's see. I've been through a couple stages of life where I had worked for other people, then I started my own business, sold that business. Now I'm doing my own thing again. And I would say during all those transitions is going within. Meditation is a major part of my life that helps me ground. And I would say taking good care of myself, taking my needs first. I have a family, I have children, I have a husband, so I have lots of responsibilities, but I make sure that I meditate every day. I make sure I eat right. I make sure there's fresh food in the house. I do a lot of reading. And I think it's not a destination. It's a process, and it's something you need to practice every day.
Yes. Amen. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is Program 23. What does add value mean to you? You heard it here with Jason and Lori, this amazing conversation that I'm going to listen to probably at least 3 times. There is so much useful information in here to sit down and think about, and that's the point of Voice of Bold Business Radio. You can find all the program notes for this. I will reference whatever I can on that program notes page. Find it at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com/P23 or search the site, What Does Add Value to You? Share your story and experience, because you, as a leader in your organization, are defining what leaders today do. Check in with yourself and ask, what does add value mean to you?
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.